This is Infosec Decoded, number 67, Reduced Performance. And we're starting with Kaitlyn, who has got the story of reduced performance.
Reduced performance, indeed. Poor AMD. So Windows 11 is shaping up to be a pretty shaky operating system. And PC Magazine has an article written by Michael Kahn talking about how AMD chips are failing in terms of performance on Windows 11. Mm-hmm. And it seems as though Microsoft sort of neglected optimizing for these processors. As a result, it turns out that there are some problems with the way that Windows handles the level 3 cache in AMD chips, dating back to the Ryzen series, as well as the UEFI CPPC2 system, which basically is the communication system between the operating system and the CPU. Where the operating system will ask the CPU, like, what's the best way of getting doing this operation? How can we go as fast as possible? And there's some issues with that. So basically, you might want to hold off installing Windows 11, is what I'm saying.
Well, I've always felt like everyone should hold off. I put it in a VM, but the earlier trials, the VMs were killing the host underneath them. So so far, it hasn't killed my Mac again yet. And I'm waiting to hear reports from any brave students at Windows to let me know if it works.
I'll do it.
Oh yeah, well, it's on my 126 page.
Yeah, and I just got a Ryzen processor too on a computer, so I will do it. I'll see how terrible it is.
Oh yeah. Oh, good. Okay. And so then Irvin has got the crypto mining.
Where is my? Hey, I lost my thing. Oh, there you go. Oh, so a while ago, NVIDIA thought they were the smartest cat on earth and forced their cards to not be useful for miners. Both little kids who don't know what they're talking about and folks who want to mine Bitcoin. Well, turns out people realized that, hey, if I run 2 miners at once, I can use the full potential of the card, even if it's been rate limited. While it doesn't work fully well on things like the 3060 or the 3070, that doesn't mean that it's not impossible to do.
Yep, that whole thing looked pretty lame.
So basically, what happened is, from what I'm hearing, is that NVIDIA decided to half the performance of all applications that are not approved for the video card.
Yep.
So if you just want to run it at full speed, you just run 2 of the applications and you're done.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
That's exactly right.
Very brilliant move by NVIDIA right there.
Yep. Hats off to them. Or hoodie off to them.
Well, cryptocurrency is just sort of an irritation to everybody. Anyway, all right, so I got the Gartner hype cycle. Someone asked me about this. So I got a lot of articles that are kind of old, but I thought it was interesting. They got the emerging tech hype cycle, and I like the Gartner hype cycle. I've explained this to people. I think it explains a lot. And I like to look at this one because it lets me know what the buzz is like. Someone was asking me about AI, and I said, I think AI is about to go down. I think everyone's beginning to realize that AI is not this miraculous thing that they thought it was going to be. And they have NFTs at the top as the thing that has totally peaked out and about to crash, which I would agree. But anyway, I had a lot of cool stuff in here I didn't know about, like compostable applications and compostable networks. I have no idea what that is. Do you people know?
No, but I would be very interested in compostable computers, just for if it's what it is, what I think it is, because we got to save the environment.
Yes, I somehow doubt that's what it is, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, also, decentralized finance, they say, is still going up. Isn't decentralized finance the same thing as cryptocurrency? I suppose I should know this, but I haven't got them straight. And self-integrating applications are coming up, and quantum machine learning. Anyway, homomorphic encryption I see on the rise here. That's about the only one here I'd agree with. I've been playing with homomorphic encryption, and it does have high promise, but it's like 1,000 times too slow right now. So
yeah, and it also has very niche applications. Basically, if you need a very secure environment, so basic for people at home that don't understand what we're talking about, homomorphic encryption is when you can manipulate data without first decrypting it.
Right.
So this would be really good if you're dealing with like a bank database or something. You wouldn't necessarily use this on all your databases, sort of like the blockchain, where they came up with this really cool thing. And it does have a few niche applications, but it's not going to take over everything because, as I mentioned, it's just sort of niche applications.
Yeah, and another fair comparison to the blockchain is it's like 1,000 times more computing power.
Yes.
So it's hard to think of many use cases where the cost is actually justified. Yeah. Anyway, so it's good to watch that stuff. And we're on to Liz. Oh, Facebook went down. Oh, yeah. I didn't hear about that. Did anybody hear about that?
I heard about it.
What's Facebook?
Folks were, this was just kind of an interesting little article that showed how drastically visits to actual news sites went up while during the Facebook outage. I had to look up, I had to look up a term from this article because I hadn't heard it before, sort of like compostable network, though when I looked up compostable network, I couldn't find anything that wasn't related to like green waste.
Mm-hmm.
But the term from this article that was new to me was dark social, because they broke it down into traffic sources to news media sites during the Facebook outage, and predictably, you know, Twitter use traffic went up 72% according to this article, which is a little higher than I would have guessed. But there were a lot of just direct there's a lot of direct traffic and a lot of search traffic, which I thought was pretty interesting. But dark social refers to different ways of sharing stuff that aren't tracked through social media. So like maybe you share a link with your friend on IRC or something.
Well, BitTorrent, I guess.
Yeah, or just, you know, if you copy and paste a link to and send it to your friend over iMessage or SMS.
You know, one thing I've heard a lot about is Telegraph groups. Apparently that's where a whole lot of like the conspiracy theories and stuff are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I know people were saying if Facebook stays down much longer, people are going to start taking the vaccine, which could happen because it seems to be responsible for most of the disinformation. But anyway, all right. And so we're back up to Kaitlyn with African riches. Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I found this story particularly interesting. It's on SFGate. It was written by a few people, Ellen Suderman, Frank Bajak, and Rodney Muhamuza, and of course the Associated Press. Basically what's going on is that Africa has a bunch of internet addresses allocated to them. IPv4 addresses allocated to them, I should say. Thank you, Sam.
Legacy.
Yes, legacy. And they are in high demand because we sort of ran out of IPv4 addresses about a year ago. And like history repeating itself like a river, there are people coming in and colonializing Africa's IPv4 address space. And there is a company named Afrinic, which is trying to reclaim those addresses for Africa, because Africa needs those addresses to build up its own technological infrastructure, right?
Well, Afrinic is the official repository, like
right.
Nick, yeah.
Right, they're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to get back these addresses for Africa. But it turns out in this case, it's not the Europeans who went in this time to colonialize. It was the Chinese. And they went in and they're not giving up these addresses without a fight. Apparently there's some people like Liu Heng, who owns a Hong Kong-based company. And they obtained like 6.2 million African addresses, and they're basically used for things like pornography and spamming and stuff like that. So I'm interested how this will play out, because I really want Africa to get their IPs back, because if they are allocated to Africa, they should be for the African people to, grow businesses, grow infrastructure, grow their economy. It's for their people, not for colonialists who want to come in and take their addresses and do semi-legal or sometimes even illegal things with them.
Well, as usual, I could take the alternative side. I've been trying to sell City College's addresses for like 5 years. City College has a Class B, and a Class B will sell for a cool $1 million this starting about 4 years ago. So you could make a lot of money selling those addresses, and they're probably not going to use them. They should just update to IPv6 and not even bother with IPv4. So, I mean, they might prefer to have the money, but I don't know if they got fair value for it.
I can almost assure you they did not get fair value for it. Just knowing history.
Yeah.
And based on what I read in the article, they did not get fair value for it. And also, it's the issue is not that they sold the addresses. The issue is colonialization. You have these large industrialized powers coming in, and taking resources away from developing countries.
Well, they might be actually just poaching the addresses. There's a lot of that happens. Yes. You can use an address that is not allocated to you and advertise it in BGP and just use it without permission until they actually notice or try to use it. So that might be what's going on. I don't know. Anyway, you can also buy them. There's a market for them.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've expected that for years because I was a great proponent of IPv6 and watching IPv4 go down, and Africa had this huge allocation they weren't using. So it was kind of waiting there to be exploited. Anyway, so Irvin has got ads in Firefox.
Yep. Firefox has now made that leap. Firefox Suggest section will now show you ads.
I've got Firefox. Let me see.
It's in the version 93.
Well, I thought it automatically updated. I don't see it in mine, but maybe after I update it.
If you type something,
okay,
in the address bar that you want to search, you should see ads down at the bottom.
Oh, Firefox Suggest. Oh, well, that's not too intrusive. That's like Google ads. Okay. Yes. I don't feel like hating them for that. I mean, that just pops up like in a list of possible matches to what you type. Yeah, okay, now, because I know Ubuntu put ads in about 8 years ago, and they just put ads on your desktop, and everybody freaked out saying, dude, I use Linux because I'm like a non-corporate hippie. What are these ads doing here? Anyway, that seems, Firefox for years has been funded entirely by Google. And every few years, Google says, why do we still pay for Firefox when we make Chrome? And Firefox says, well, then we'll switch our search engine to Bing. And I don't know how that turned out. Is it still Google or did they switch it to Bing? Search with Google. It's still Google.
Yes, still should be Google.
So Google must be funding them for that privilege. Anyway, and that's where Firefox gets their money, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what Google does. All right.
Well, it keeps them from being a monopoly in the eyes of people who don't get it.
I suppose it might. Anyway, I like Firefox. It's a good product. I use it a lot. I prefer it to Chrome, actually. But I just don't understand why Google competes against themselves. Anyway, I got another old article from October from a guy who talking about, because various people are complaining about Facebook retaliating against them. And they totally will. Facebook is a jealous tyranny. And if you irritate them, they will just kick you out and punish you. And so will Apple, by the way. If you irritate them, they'll kick you out of the App Store and ban you for life. And this guy invented some app called Unfollow Everybody, which turns Facebook into a I don't use Facebook, but what people say is you use Facebook, they have your feed, which contains stuff your friends said and other stuff other people said, and their algorithm chooses what to show you. You don't even see everything they said, which is why it spreads misinformation and stuff. It carefully chooses stuff. And if you don't want their curated, controlled feed, you can just turn it off with this extension called Unfollow Everything. And then you'll only see what you want to see on Facebook. You can click on your friends and see what they're saying, which turns it, he said it makes it much more peaceful, much less irritating, and you don't see the ads. So of course, Facebook hated that, so they banned him forever for daring to make that product. And, it's, I think there might be grounds for a lawsuit here. I know people sued Donald Trump and said he's not allowed to unfollow anybody because he made presidential proclamations from his tweet, and unfollowing or blocking someone constitutes denying them that information. So if they're going to be like a necessary utility, then I think you could sue them for denying your service. Anyway, that's the latest thing about Facebook. And Liz has got Honda. Why is everybody launching satellites?
Well, this is actually kind of cool. I kind of glanced past it and then oh, boring, yet another company doing the same thing, but they're actually doing something pretty cool. Right now, part of the reason that satellite launches are so expensive is because the rockets are disposable. But just they're just single use rockets. But what Honda is working on is actually super cool because they're working on a way to be able to reuse the rockets and basically use autonomous vehicle control technology to bring the rocket back to the launch pad instead and be able to use it over again.
That's what SpaceX already does, right?
I don't know.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah, that was the big thing with SpaceX. So so this has always been the big thing in rocketry is that most of the rocket is expendable. This was the idea behind the space shuttle, is that we were going to have this relaunchable vehicle that would go into space. But of course, as we all know, the big tanks and the boosters just are disposed every liftoff. And so the space shuttle just ended up being more expensive than just a regular rocket, although it looked amazingly cool at the time. And so what SpaceX does is they have rockets that will land in the middle of the ocean on those little rafts. And
Yeah. But why does Honda want to do it? Is there money in putting up satellites?
Oh,
Yeah.
For sure. Because especially if they can reduce the overhead cost of the launch, because right now it costs like $45 million to send one up. But if they can bring that cost down significantly, then it will cost a lot less to launch your satellites into space.
So we're going to have car brands of spapeships. This is like turning into the Jetsons. So
True, but they do make Honda does make other stuff. They make generators, which are pretty awesome, and they actually make a plane, a private jet for business use.
I can't wait for the Yugo rocket anyway.
Yeah, we're in this very odd new space race among private companies trying to reduce the cost of launches, which is great for space exploration because that has always been the big limiting factor. But yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see how this goes.
We could go all the way back to Jules Verne, where they just shoot you out of a cannon. Anyway,
I mean, that's the idea behind like a space elevator, where you just go up a chain and push yourself off at the top. I mean,
yeah. All right. And so we're back to Kaitlyn with the Twitch hack.
Yeah. So good news, everybody. Twitch has been hacked. Pretty badly. So all right. So The Verge has an article written by Tom Horn talking about how Twitch was basically hacked. So whenever there's a hack, it's going to be DNS, BGP, or some misconfiguration. And this time it was a misconfiguration. And hackers got in and they stole basically the secrets of the company, the source code, stuff like that. They did not get user credentials. They did not get credit card information. So
it sounds like they just made their GitHub public by accident.
Right. Yes, exactly. It was, they accidentally the GitHub. And so, if you're a customer of Twitch, don't worry too much. Your stuff's safe. Twitch itself, of course, is shaking because now other competitors know what they've been working on, including a streaming service for Amazon. This is actually becoming a big thing, game streaming. And I thought it was going to be a niche thing, but I think it's actually going to become more popular as companies are putting out smaller devices for gaming. In particular, I noticed the Nintendo Switch. A lot of companies don't want to spend the time retooling and redesigning their games to run on this slower hardware. So what they're doing instead is when they want to port games over to the portable systems, they just make it a streaming service. And that makes sense. I mean, I thought streaming services for games like Netflix didn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you're talking about porting games very cheaply and easily to systems that wouldn't be able to handle it, that's where it makes sense. And so, yeah, Twitch is working on that with Amazon. And, you know, their entire source code got leaked. So, yeah, fun times. I'm sure the chief information officer at Twitch is having a good day right now.
But as far as I can tell, not passwords or anything.
Yep.
Although payout information leaked, and so people know who's making the most money on Twitch, which doesn't really seem like a huge problem. But
nope, yeah, like I said, it's not a huge problem for consumers of Twitch. Big problem for Twitch itself.
I guess, yeah. So other people just open source their stuff. They've just open sourced their stuff by accident. Anyway.
No, it was an unplanned distributed backup.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And so Irvin's getting burp certified.
So yeah, this came out not that long ago of Web Security Academy saying if you are able to pass the test before December 15th, they will refund you the $99 to take the test.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I should do it. I teach that course. The Web Security Academy is wonderful.
I know. I'm thinking about doing it too.
I think it would be good for students to get that cert.
Yeah. It's not too expensive. It's in the field, and their content is great.
Yeah, it really is. That's great. I had my own web hacking projects, and I pretty much just threw them away and switched to their stuff, which is better. So, yeah. All right. And so anyway, as you mentioned about Twitch, part of the source code that leaked was the login code, and a bunch of people looked at this and immediately said there's a flaw in it. And I must say, I looked at it for a little while and I couldn't quite see it. But the point is, Twitch, like everybody else, has been around for a few years. So they used to use an insecure password hashing system, which is apparently one round of salted SHA-1. But then they upgraded to bcrypt or scrypt, which is like 5,000 rounds of SHA-1. So they rehashed the old passwords, the old password hashes, which is what you're supposed to do. But their code, there is now two options for passwords. Passwords for the old account are hashed with one round of SHA-1, and then presumably with this, passwords for new accounts just start with the password and go through bcrypt. And they say somehow, because of this, you can just use the leaked password hash and log in. So I didn't quite get it, but there's now two different forms of password hash, and they forgot to make sure that you are comparing the correct one. And they claim that if the password hashes leak, you'll be able to just use them to log in because of this code. So that would be interesting. We might see that happen. And if I could understand it, I would write one like this and give it to my students for a project. I might do that, but it looks like a cute mistake, because that is in fact the recommended procedure, is that you should keep rehashing your old password hashes as you have to move to later generations of more secure password hashes. And it does raise an issue. Anyway, it seems to me like you could easily make a new password hashing scheme that is completely consistent with the old one and hash everything. So there's still only one correct form of hashing, but apparently that is not what Twitch did. And from what I've heard, it's not what other people do either. Anyway, Liz has got breach exposure.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting article about some new regulations that will set up a system whereby the government will be able to sanction contractors for hiding data breaches, security breaches, which I thought was pretty interesting, because there pretty much hasn't been a lot of availability to go after these people, because we pay a lot of money to various government contractors at the state, federal, and local level. And this seems mostly targeted at federal contractors, but I imagine it would apply at other levels of government as well. Basically, if if a company suffers a breach and then doesn't disclose it, tries to just hide it, then they get in big trouble. It doesn't say what the penalties are here. I'm imagining that they're financial. Hopefully it's enough of a disincentive to hopefully the fines will be large enough that there'll be a disincentive to just continue to hide and deny when these things happen. But yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting.
Yeah, they certainly do deny it. Of course, the big issue, I think, is not denying, but just never knowing you've been breached.
Right,
That's usually
because
what happens.
so many of them just have, their systems are compromised for years on end, and they just don't know.
And all they need is canary tokens. I don't know why anybody doesn't use canary tokens. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because I think that'll be a defense, but at a certain point, this is just another incremental step in progress towards getting companies to take security more seriously.
yeah. Yep. We've been watching it happen for the last 10 or 20 years. Now more and more companies are admitting they get breached, admitting that if you submit a vulnerability report, maybe they should actually pay attention instead of just telling you to go away.
Yeah. And some companies, some contractors will just blow this off and pay the fine or whatever. But every time something like this comes around, at least a portion of those companies will say, all right, we've got to be in regulatory compliance. We better start doing audits to make sure there's nothing they can get us for.
Well, and that's the value of compliance. I mean, federal contractors really obey whatever rules you give them. So
right,
you can make them do stuff. Anyway, and all right, and I had another one here. Leslie Carhart today tweeted Hack for Pancakes on that people are stealing a lot of cars in her neighborhood that are keyless cars. And she pointed to an article from last year explaining how this works and how to prevent it. And I hadn't paid enough attention to this. This is actually pretty brilliant. If you carry one of these modern car keys, when you get close to your car, it just opens the door and lets you start it. So all they have to do at night, you're in your house, your car is outside. All they do is sneak up to your door and get a radio amplifier to amplify the signal from your keys so that it thinks you're closer to the car and they can just get right in. That's actually pretty awesome. And I'm not sure what you can do about it except keep your keys in a metal box or something. But that's called signal relaying. And that does sound brilliant and simple and effective. One defense would be to live like an apartment building on the top floor where you really are far from your car.
That's a great defense. I like that idea, Sam.
Another thing that people can do is not. A lot of people keep their keys in a bowl by the door or hung on a hook by the door. Don't do that. Put it deeper into your home.
Yeah. I'm just, if it was me, I would have like a little, like we have these little things you can slide to block the camera.
Yeah.
Have your key in some kind of container where you can just close it like a purse.
Like a Faraday pouch would work.
Yeah. Just store it in a purse with tinfoil in it. Like I know at HackerCons, they sell like wallets with like shields in them. So people can't read your RFID credit cards. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. The other one I thought was pretty good is they can just jam the signal so that when you try to lock it, it doesn't lock. These are pretty cute attacks. Anyway, so there's recommendations here of how to protect your car from those attacks. And I guess you poor people that have like these modern cars need to worry about that. My car is protected by multiple layers of endpoint protection. By having none of this fancy stuff and by being so worthless that nobody wants it anyway, I forgot and left it unlocked again yesterday. That happens a lot. And I've never had any problem. Nobody.
You are the only person in the big city who can leave their car unlocked for days at a time and no one will even mess with your car.
Nobody ever messes with you. You just drive it, you say, Jesus Christ, there's nothing stealing in that thing.
Yeah, there's a song that I like that I always think of you when I hear it, Sam, and part of the chorus is the car not stolen probably never will because it's much too old.
That's me, absolutely. It's anyway. All right. Well, that's it for this one, and we will be back on Tuesday. I will hunt for the button. I found the button.